Now, I have just seen an excellent film yesterday called Gran Turismo. So I wanted to tell you about this. Seriously, if you're looking for an old school father son story, Gran Turismo, excellent. If you're looking for an old school coach, athlete, mentor, mentee story, excellent. If you're looking for a classic, young man pursuing his destiny and paying the price to get there, excellent. It just hits all the. If you're looking for, there's even a kind of a small little B story in here about Orlando Bloom's character being this marketing guy who really believes in this idea, but also doubts himself a little bit. He has an excellent little story in this as well. Captain's Log, previously on the Captain's Cast live stream, live every Thursday and Sunday with me, Captain Garrett. So basically, here's the story. It's based on a true story. Jan Mardenborough. The British say it so fast, like Mardenborough. I'm like, Mardenborough, who is basically a gamer who is playing, of course, they're very specific about this in the film, not a video game, a racing simulator called Gran Turismo. And they did a competition. This is a real thing that happened. Nissan partnered with PlayStation and did this competition where the top players of Gran Turismo would be selected to actually be trained and compete as actual race car drivers. And Jan, he qualified and he got into this. He's a teenager. He's kind of a little bit of a disappointment to his father. Kind of dreams of being a race car driver. It's what he's always wanted to do, but he's sort of living in his brother's shadow. His older brother is sort of everything his father wants him to be, which is, his father was a pro soccer player, I believe. His younger son, Jan, as being a bit of a screw up, he basically thinks what my parents thought of me when I was playing video games. Like, why are you wasting your day playing video games? So to him, the racing Gran Turismo was just a video game that's wasting Jan's life. But Jan, he gets this opportunity to qualify for this race. And there's a really great, in Act 1, there's a really great element of how nobody takes this seriously except him. And he's already feels like a disappointment to his father, who he does look up to. He gets into training for this race. One of my favorite parts of this story is that nobody really believes in Jan, but not only that, Orlando Bloom plays the guy whose brainchild all of this is, Danny Moore. So Orlando Bloom plays Danny Moore, and he's kind of the marketing guru that figured out this idea. But there's, even though Nissan kind of buys his idea, they're very skeptical about it, and everyone else, including in the racing community, all think that this is a boondoggle. This is a stupid idea. It's never going to work. So there's a really great thematic element of the story of basically people with big dreams who have to persist in pursuing those dreams, even though no one believes in them and everyone thinks they're just going to embarrass themselves. David Harbour, who is excellent in this film, is Jack Saltaire, who is he was a former racer and he's an engineer, and Danny Moore has to hire him to make sure that this is safe, to make sure that, nobody gets themselves killed. And at first, Jack Saltaire thinks this is a stupid idea too, but his life is so shitty working for these spoiled rich guys that he specifically is working for Nicholas Kappa, who is essentially kind of the nemesis in the film for Jan. He's this spoiled rich kid who just buys his way into all the racing stuff. And he's basically just hiring Jack to be his engineer and to just do whatever he says. And so Jack's like, screw you. I'm going to go try this thing. So he signs on to the Gran Turismo program. He functions as a kind of surrogate father, but also a kind of drill sergeant to Jan and the other racing Gran Turismo hopefuls. And he is excellent at this. This is such a great mentor-mentee story. If you love stories about characters who have to like train and get good at something, and they have kind of the wise sensei training them, this is one of the best. And this is an excellent piece of classic storytelling. So Jan is competing against real race car drivers that, turn up their nose at him. He has a rival that is this kind of spoiled rich kid that has everything handed to him. And they don't think he's a real race driver. Jack Saltaire, his his coach, his mentor, half doesn't believe in him either, which is a great element of the film. So that pretty much sets up the story. And I have got to tell you, this is an excellent movie. And if you want a film that is an excellent father son story, I'm going to tell you right now, the captain will be very honest about this. I get emotional. In good movies, I get emotional. I don't allow anyone to see it, and I deny it later. So that's just between you and me. Don't tell anyone this. This is just us friends, okay? And I'm going to tell you, I got dusty. It got a little dusty in that theater. And it was during kind of one of those father-son moments towards the end of the film. And let me tell you something. I've said this before on the channel. I long for that experience in movies when the movie just takes over and suddenly I'm no longer thinking about the fact that I'm watching a movie. I'm just in it and I just feel emotions as I'm watching it. And when I get that feeling, that's a winner. That is a winner right there. That is a film I can get. It's a powerful story because it has to do with fathers and sons and how they can sometimes not understand each other and earning each other's respect. And it's excellent. It hits every right note. You then also, and there's an interesting angle with David Harbour's character. And I love David Harbour from playing Hopper on Stranger Things. He is almost a competitive figure for Jan's father because Jan's father, Steve, who's played by the brilliant Jimon Hansu. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Jimon Hansu. And he's kind of in this unspoken competitive relationship with Jack Saltaire, who Jack Saltaire, by the way, I love how Jack starts out. Jack basically says, you kids are gamers. He said that they're the Nissan guy over here. He's here to prove you guys can do this. I'm here to prove you can't. And so slowly but surely, Jan is earning Jack's respect. And as he earns Jack's respect, this kind of surrogate father-son relationship emerges. And what's interesting about it is Jack seems to understand Jan's dream in a way that Jan's actual father can't, because Jan's actual father was a different kind of athlete. He doesn't understand video games. He doesn't understand the world of racing or cars. And so you get this kind of unspoken competition between these two father figures. And the story pays that off beautifully in the end of the film. I feel like kind of both of those arcs mature in the third act in a way that's powerful. It's emotional. I talk a lot about, some of the problems with these other shows that I'm watching, like Ahsoka. There's no emotional core with these characters that carries you through it. Gran Turismo is a classic piece of storytelling because it hits all the right beats that you have to hit. This is analog. Yes. This is the Blake Snyder beat sheet. I keep this next to me while I'm writing. And this is essentially the main components of a successful story. And there's a couple of points in the story that I really love, which is the bad guys close in, all is lost, and the dark night of the soul. Now, these are really, in good films, these are the best parts of the movie. This doesn't necessarily have to be actual bad guys. Sometimes this is, if it's a film like The Perfect Storm, it's actually the storm that is the bad guys closing in. This film, I kind of felt like I had it figured out. I'm watching it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a nice bad guys close in. And boy, was I wrong, because when the bad guys close in this movie, Gran Turismo, it is, oh shit, I was shocked. It was awesome. Which was followed by an absolutely heart-wrenching all is lost moment, which is basically when the character is at their lowest, the character or characters are at their lowest point. Like, this is when Luke has just had, his hand cut off. He's at the bottom of Cloud City, Luke Skywalker at Empire Strikes Back, and he's missing a hand, and he's holding on to like some kind of antenna or something over an endless, bottomless fall into this gas giant, and he's crying for help with nowhere to go. That's a pretty good all is lost moment. And then Dark Night of the Soul, which is usually when the character is feeling hopeless. Now, why do I bring this up? Because I'm going to tell you right now, every single beat on there, this film hits beautifully, perfectly. Here's the thing. It's got a $60 million budget. That's reasonable. That's reasonable, especially, this film is the cinematography is excellent. There is a really amazing what's interesting about this movie is they actually kind of that they sort of blend the world of actual racing with video game racing. They kind of blend them together in a really cool visual style in this movie that makes you feel like you're both watching an actual race and you're also kind of watching the video game in a way. So the way that they use the visual storytelling to make sure that you are always exactly pinpoint accurate on what's happening in the scene. Like you're never confused in this movie. I was never at and I'm not a race guy. I don't follow NASCAR. I was never once confused about where they are, the dangers of the racetrack, how challenging is this race, how many drivers are in it, like who is he up against, what place is he in, how long has he been driving. I didn't have one thing in this movie I was confused about, not one. And part of that was owing to the really brilliant visual style of how they would present the action. The music is great. The story structure is excellent. The direction is excellent. All the performances are really good. And this is kind of one of those based on a true story films. You get to the end and then they show you the real people. Dude, I actually felt like emotion welling up when they showed the real pictures of the real Jan Mardenborough. Mardenborough is how the British would say it. Mardenborough. They show the real guy, the real father, the real Jack Saltaire. They show them all at the end in kind of these side-by-sides actors with the real, and I got emotional. I really did because I was like, oh, that's so awesome. The real Jan Mardenborough actually was the stunt double for the actor who played Jan Mardenborough, which of course is Archie Madekwe. Madekwe, if I'm pronouncing that right. Archie Madekwe played Jan. And I'm going to tell you, the racing feels real. It feels like you feel the speed, the danger of like, this isn't a video game. This is for real. You're being strapped into a rocket ship. You could die. And that tension and that level of stakes is ever present in this story. Really, it's about him going from being a boy in his bedroom playing video games to a man who is an athlete who knows what it takes to win, and he's earned it through the pain, the suffering, and even the loss that was required for him to become the man that is winning these races and to reach an understanding between him and his father. Out of 10 bars on the epaulettes, Gran Turismo, directed by Neil Blomkamp, starring Archie Madekwe, David Harbour, and Orlando Bloom, gets 10 bars on the epaulettes. That's right, 10 out of 10. So 10 out of 10 bars. I say it without, I don't even have to think about it. I walked out of the theater. It's like 10. That's an even 10. The mission will continue on the Captain's Cast live stream with me, Captain Garrett, on the Swords and Starships channel live every Thursday and Sunday. Don't miss it, and I will see you in the chat out there.